Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're decoding a fascinating and honestly a kind of terrifying executive briefing. It exposes the absolute fragility of the critical infrastructure that literally powers our daily lives. We're looking at Australia's Systems of National Significance, or SoNS, and what it really means when the government looks at you and decides, yep, your assets are load-bearing for the entire country.
So what happens when a single asset brings down a whole nation? That's the chilling reality sitting right at the heart of Australia's new regulatory regime. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that checking a compliance box and actually surviving a crisis, yeah, they are absolutely not the same thing anymore. This briefing isn't just about parsing some new laws, it's about avoiding sheer national catastrophe.
To break this down, we're going to use the iceberg model. We'll start at the surface with systems of national significance, move through complexity and chaos, dive into invisible code debt, look at the ticking quantum clock, and finally surface with compliance versus capability.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Systems of National Significance, the surface level.
Now, the definition we have here is what's truly interesting. The government doesn't care about a company's profit margin or its massive market cap. Not at all. They literally only care about how much of the nation grinds to a halt when that specific asset fails. If you get slapped with a System of National Significance designation, it is definitely not a compliment. It's the Commonwealth telling you, hey, your failure doesn't just stay with you, it cascades across sectors and cripples the country's daily life.
And because the stakes are just that high, a SoNS designation flips the switch on these really heavy enhanced obligations to force actual proven capability. It's no longer enough to just have a dusty written plan sitting on a shelf somewhere. The board actually has to see hard evidence, right? We're talking exercise reports, active vulnerability assessments, concrete management responses. The regulator can even force you to install software to beam system information directly to the Australian Signals Directorate. The point here is proving you can take a hit and keep running, not just ticking off a compliance checklist.
Moving on to Section 2, Complexity, Chaos, and Failure, Descending into the System.
So as we go deeper, we run into a really dangerous illusion of control. For your average ordinary asset, you can usually rely on a control register, mainly because failures are pretty predictable and isolated. But a SoNS asset, totally different beast. Because it operates in this incredibly tightly coupled system of systems, you have to assume surprise. Chaos theory tells us that in these highly connected webs, a tiny minor fault, think a single expired security certificate or just one misconfigured controller, can unleash completely disproportionate cross-sector chaos. You literally can't foresee every single failure path, so you just have to build the capacity to absorb that surprise.
Which brings us into the dark waters of Section 3, the invisible code debt, the hidden threats.
Technical debt is like a loan paid in fragility. I absolutely love that quote from Ward Cunningham, because when we're talking about critical infrastructure, this decades-old legacy code isn't sitting neatly on some financial balance sheet. I mean, we're talking about power plants running on operating systems that are older than the actual engineers managing them. That debt is paid out in extreme national vulnerability. It's those legacy controllers you just can't patch without taking a whole power grid offline, or end-of-life software kept on life support just because ripping it out is way too disruptive.
And now, artificial intelligence is hitting this problem from two directions at once. On one side, AI tools are relentlessly scanning these legacy systems and bubbling up old, invisible flaws way faster than human teams can even hope to fix them, creating this massive, overwhelming remediation backlog. But on the flip side, new agentic AI is out there actively writing and generating brand new code debt at breakneck speed. This is exactly why this brief screams about the urgent need for a software bill of materials, or an SBOM. You simply cannot manage a risk if you can't even see it.
Let's sink down to the absolute abyss now, with Section 4, the ticking quantum clock. Harvest now, decrypt later. Guys, adversaries are not sitting around waiting for a fully functional quantum computer to get built before they attack. They are intercepting and hoarding encrypted, highly sensitive data right now. Their whole game plan is just to sit on it, and the second a capable quantum machine comes online, boom, they crack it wide open. So if you're managing a system of national significance with data that needs to stay secret for decades, your exposure isn't some futuristic problem. Your exposure is today.
The quantum clock is literally already ticking. When you look at the timeline ahead, the transition for these critical systems has to start by the end of 2028. And by the end of 2030, traditional asymmetric cryptography is effectively dead in the water. But here's the really terrifying part. Our current baseline rules don't even legally force companies to have a post-quantum transition plan yet. And we all know the lead times for swapping out legacy systems are agonizingly long. You have to adopt crypto agility and get moving on this before the regulator, or worse, the adversary, forces your hand.
All right, let's finally surface back up to the boardroom in Section 5, Compliance versus Capability, Surfacing to Reality.
$330,000. That is the maximum financial civil penalty for a corporate contravention under this new regime. But let's be real for a second. If you're sitting on a board, that dollar amount is the absolute least of your worries. The true consequence of failing to secure a SoNS isn't getting a slap on the wrist with a fine. It's a cascading national blockout. It's the Commonwealth government deciding to invoke their last resort consequence management powers to step right in and effectively take over your entire operation.
So how on earth do you avoid that nightmare? Well, you take 4 absolutely critical actions. Number 1, maintain a live, breathing map of all your SoNS assets. 2, stop relying on paperwork and adopt a capability standard, meaning actually run live cybersecurity exercises. 3, make your technical debt visible right now using a software bill of materials. And 4, start that post-quantum cryptographic transition today, not tomorrow. These aren't just nice-to-haves. These are the crucial assurance questions every board has to demand to turn dry paper compliance into actual, genuine national resilience.
Which brings us right down to our final question. Think about this. If your most critical system failed today, would you just be non-compliant, or would you be the domino that brings down the nation? That right there is the true, staggering scale of a system of national significance. It completely shifts the burden from just managing your own corporate risk to managing the risk of an entire society. And honestly, it really leaves us wondering just how many fragile dominoes are silently holding up our world today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.